Over the weekend, Islam Makhachev's team came out and said that they did not agree to a fight against Ilia Topuria, and then also mentioned that Islam Makhachev wants Ilia to pick up a win at 155 before he gets that title shot against Islam. Now, I feel like this is kind of a tough look and disappointing from at least a couple of different angles. I mean, first off, I think this is the fight that the vast majority of people want to see. Ilia Topuria moving up from 145. He vacated that belt. Let's get this super fight, him taking on Islam Makhachev. I think most people, including myself, believe this is the toughest test for Islam Makhachev in the lightweight weight class. And then I also just feel like this is the same guy who, after UFC 311, said that if you can make 155 and get into the cage, like he's pretty much willing to take on anyone. And unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like that's the case. Now, I could understand the opinion of a champion, a guy like Islam Makhachev, where if there was some super deserving guy at 155 who had like this bulletproof resume, who earned the title shot, that you wouldn't want that guy to get passed over for someone like Ilia, who's moving up, doesn't have a win at lightweight. But there's just not that guy at 155. Like, I think of the current 155ers that you could make a case for getting that title shot, it would be Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, and Justin Gaethje. In my opinion, like, Arman Tsarukyan is by far the most deserving guy. He's on a 4-fight win streak, back-to-back wins against Charles Oliveira, and then the KO against Beneil Dariush. Now, it seems pretty clear that Arman is not getting that title shot, but it's because he, got the opportunity and then pulled out the day before. But like the names that Islam Makhachev is throwing out there, Justin Gaethje seems to be the primary guy. I just don't see how you can pitch a Justin Gaethje matchup over an Ilia Topuria one. Like, Justin Gaethje is on a 1-fight win streak, and it was a decision win against the number 11 guy in the world on short notice. So I just don't think Gaethje has the resume. Now, does it kind of suck that he probably earned the title shot before the Max Holloway fight and then he lost it? Like, yeah, I get it, but Gaethje also made the choice to take that fight, and when you get knocked out cold by Max Holloway and then you get a 1-fight win streak after that, I just don't think that's enough, especially to overtake someone who has back-to-back KO wins over Volkanovski and Max Holloway. It would be, potentially the biggest fight the UFC could make, maybe second biggest behind like a John Jones, Tom Aspinall matchup. But I just don't really get this from the Islam Makhachev camp. And then I guess you could throw out Charles Oliveira's name, but another guy, 1-fight win streak, Michael Chandler by decision. Like, those resumes just aren't swaying me. In my opinion, if it's a current lightweight, it should be Arman Tsarukyan. It doesn't seem like that's the case, and I just don't see how you make a realistic argument for Oliveira or Gaethje to get the opportunity over Ilia Topuria. Now, I will say, I think the fans are partly to blame here, because in an effort to kind of discredit Islam Makhachev, or for the people who don't really like him, to try to like lessen his resume, there has been this narrative kind of thrown out there that he's only beating featherweights, right? So he had the defense against Volkanovski, and then he had the rematch against Volkanovski, which, by the way, was not his fault. He was supposed to be rematching Charles Oliveira. Oliveira pulls out. Volkanovski is the guy who, steps in on short notice. So it's not his fault that he took on Volkanovski that second time. And then some people have even thrown out like, oh, he's fighting former featherweights in Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano. Like, these arguments are absolutely brain dead. Like, Dustin, Moicano, they are clear 155ers right now. Dustin's, best performances are at 155. Moicano was the heavier guy when he took on Islam Makhachev. So, like, anyone throwing those narratives out there, it's just stupid. Also, like, the first Volk fight, Volk moving up from 145 is like a high-quality title defense. It's not like, the most amazing thing in the world. He didn't get a finish, but like, an all-time great champion moving up is going to be tougher than like the average dude that's going to be challenging you for your belt. The second Volk fight, short notice, was a 145er, but like, that's out of his control. So I do think part of it is like, he's getting criticized for taking on these 145ers. If he beats Ilia, he thinks the response is just going to be, oh, he beat another featherweight. He's not fighting someone his own size, like a Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira again, or an Arman Tsarukyan. And then he does have a lot to lose because Ilia is probably the toughest matchup. Like, I do think that's the case. So I do get it from that perspective. I just don't really understand why this is even like a topic of conversation. Like, I feel like the UFC should be set in stone. Like, Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev is the next fight. Now, I could understand it if Ilia was trying to like hold on to the 145 belt and then also move up, get that double champ status, because then you run the risk of him holding up divisions. Is he going to just win and vacate? Like, you get into some problems in that situation, but he is vacated. Like, Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez are fighting for that featherweight title. So I just don't understand the idea of making Ilia fight someone else, especially from the UFC's perspective, because you just never know how these things go. The biggest fight is obviously Islam taking on Ilia, and Ilia could slip on a banana peel in his first fight at 155. Islam Makhachev could slip on a banana peel in his next title defense. Islam Makhachev could win his next title defense and then decide he wants to move up to 170, and then you lose this massive fight. I just think this fight is right here. It's going to go down as one of the biggest what ifs if it doesn't happen. Like, people talk about GSP Silva, John Jones as like big fights that never happened. And those are, potential big matchups that never happened. But those guys were never actively fighting in the same weight class, at least for Silva not going up for like these one-off fights. Ilia Topuria is now a lightweight, right? He gave up that belt. He is now a 155er. And just not getting that Islam Makhachev Ilia Topuria fight would be super disappointing. So I hope Islam's team comes around. I do think this is one of those spots where the UFC should really kind of dig their heels in, because I think we could be ending up with like this Islam title reign that could be kind of disappointing, and not due to his own issues, right? Like, instead of the second Volk fight on short notice, it should have been the Charles rematch. Instead of Renato Moicano, it should have been the Arman Tsarukyan rematch. Both interesting, tough matchups. And then if this is now a Justin Gaethje fight over an Ilia Topuria, in my opinion, those are like three defenses where ideally he's taking on someone else. Two of those, like I said, weren't his fault. This one could be, I guess, if he's really going to dig his heels in. But let me know your thoughts. Obviously, you can tell what I think. I want the Ilia Topuria Islam Makhachev fight. I think the, word out of Islam's camp isn't great. I just don't think it's, based in a ton of reality. I think Ilia is very deserving, and especially just because there's not a ton of, clear options at 155. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think about Islam's team, coming out with this, and who do you want to see him face next?